so clear, river so clear.
Let us join in the spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words from this morning. The reading is from the UUA's Worship Web. What is love calling you to do? The world needs Unitarian Universalists to show up for justice with spiritual grounding, generosity, humility, courage, and concrete skills. It is a spiritual practice to choose love over fear, to be brave, to show up when we're called to occupy space with loving resistance rather than fearful retreat. We are most powerful when we understand that all the issues we care most deeply about are fundamentally interlinked, and that each of us has a role to play in building a world in which all people can be free and thrive. When we bring our best selves to our justice work, whichever specific campaign it may be, we are choosing to side with love. We join Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. Would Don please come up to light the chalice, which is a symbol of the spark of light within each of us. If you are on Zoom and have your chalice with you, I invite you to turn on your video to share them while you light them. We are in good company. Our chalice lighting words are entitled, "We Light This Flame" by Reverend Yami A. Yandel of Austin, Texas. We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may be a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame and we are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as a prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love. Our program this morning is on the Indian boarding schools and some of the problems that they caused. You have probably noticed our big banner on the front of the church about Orange Shirt Day. So I want to tie these two things together. Last fall, about this time, the Justice Council met with Melanie Moniz and several other Native Americans who talked us through the Orange Shirt Day event that was about to happen, because it always happens on, I believe, the 30th of September every year. And the story that Melanie told is that this commemoration, celebration, whatever you want to call it, originated in Canada and was entitled Orange Shirt Day because of a young Native child, little girl, who was going to be sent to one of the boarding schools up there. And in preparation for this exciting event, her grandmother took her shopping. And the grandma bought the little girl a beautiful orange blouse or shirt or something. And the little girl was so excited to have a new garment, brand new garment, pretty orange color. And she wanted to wear it when she got to the school. Well, she went to the school and the orange shirt was taken away from her. And she, like everybody else in the school, was put into a military type of uniform. And so the concept of, and she never saw her orange shirt again, according to the story. So that's where the name Orange Shirt Day comes from, is in commemoration of that little girl. When Melanie spoke to us, and she spoke to all of us over Zoom, I committed that this was a subject, I had to admit this was a subject I knew nothing about. And what I promised at that point is that before I became actively involved, I needed to educate myself. So I have spent quite a bit of time this summer doing that. One of the first books I read was called Stringing Rosaries by Denise Lashmadier, which Denise has a PhD from the University of North Dakota. She was on the faculty of NDSU, and she interviewed people who had been residents of boarding schools. Some had positive things to say, but more of them were negative things to say. I've also read a master's degree thesis by a woman who talked about the Indian boarding school that was right here in Bismarck. She covered about a 10-year time frame, talking about how, and her focus was on the involvement of families in this boarding school and the strength that the families showed in trying to stay in touch with their children. But she covered a very brief time period of that boarding school. I now have another book that was recommended to me called Education for Extinction. That's the next thing I'm going to read. And when you see today's video, you will understand, I think, why the book was given that name. And this book is allegedly one of the best research studies that was done about the Indian boarding school. So with that as a background, I'd like to introduce Don, or have Don come up and talk to us about, or introduce the actual video itself, because our program today is on video.
As Pat said, the program this morning is to honor boarding school survivors and to remember those who never made it home. We will show a video of survivors discussing boarding schools, which in the video, one survivor described the boarding schools as a system to destroy everything that was Native American. This program is intended to be educational for people who have no direct experience or family experience, especially those of us who are non-Indigenous. We acknowledge this is a potentially traumatizing topic, and so also at this time, if there are folks who would we are also hosting an alternative space with coffee and facilitated conversation in our library. We are definitely not experts in this subject, but we are still learning and want to continue to learn as we see this issue tying with our Stand with Love program with the UUA. For more than 150 years, Indigenous children in the United States were taken from their families and forced into faraway boarding schools. From the 1870s, actually I heard in 1869 was when it all started, to as late as the 1960s and 70s, nearly 300 boarding schools, many government-run, operated around the country. Native languages, religion, customs were forbidden. The goal was to separate Indian children from their homes and strip away the indigenous cultures. Also, every Christian denomination, not every, but pretty close to every Christian denomination, including the Unitarians, operated boarding schools somewhere in the country. The name of the video is Survivors of Native American Boarding Schools Discuss the Dark History in the U.S., and it was produced by NBC News. What was the supporting system for, 350 was what in the video, 350 boarding schools in this country, and supported by federal law. Federal laws supported it, federal funds did support them. Many of the denominations, religious schools supporting it. We often hear of backlash today about talking about institutional situations and systemic things in our culture, and yet we had for over 150 years, cultural support, institutional support, religious support. This wasn't, I like to say, this wasn't just a couple of bad guys who did this. This was not an individual kind of a situation where just a few people decided to be really obnoxious. This was the whole, this was the country. This is what was happening in our country for 150 years. And the right, I had this. It was not until 1978, with the passing of the Indian Child Welfare Act, that Native American parents gained the legal right to deny their children's placement in off-reservation schools. Until 1978, that's not very long ago, the federal government could come in and take Indian kids away from their parents and put them in different schools. So I'd like to put that in context of where we are today with people passing laws in many states, including our own, saying, we don't want to talk about this anymore, and you can't teach our children this bad stuff. And so it's more of the one of the things that caught my attention in the video was the first step is that one of the survivors said this, or I think it was the archivist said, is acknowledgement and learning. And so that's what we hope to do is acknowledge that, and then comes conversation. I think acknowledgement and learning needs to come first.
We will extinguish our chalice with these words from St. Francis of Assisi. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others more than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned.
We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds, change a life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the West. It is time now. And what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. I'm on my way.